There's a six-stage pattern. Three empires followed it. France, 1789. Russia, 1917. America's Gilded Age, 1890s. Three different countries, three different centuries. Same six stages, same result, and right now in 2025, the United States just completed stage 4. History shows us something brutal. When an economy splits into two worlds, elite world and everyone else, and these worlds stop interacting for more than 3 years, the system synchronizes itself back. Always, but synchronization doesn't mean everyone rises together. It means one world collapses. 1789. French elite fell. Guillotines, 1917. Russian elite fell. Revolution, 1890s. American working class fell. Depression, 2025. Year 3 of the split. Someone's about to fall. Let's start with France, 1780s. On the surface, brilliant. Versailles was glittering. Aristocracy swimming in luxury. France was the power in Europe, but underneath, two parallel worlds that didn't touch anymore. French society divided. First and second estates, church and nobility, owned 40% of all land. The church alone controlled 10% of the country. They paid almost no taxes. Third estate minus 98% of the population carried the entire tax burden. Peasants paid royal taxes, church tithes, feudal fees. Bread took 88% of a peasant family's budget. When prices doubled in the late 1780s, people couldn't eat. Two worlds. One prospered, one starved, and they never met. By 1789, the gap became mathematically absurd. Versailles spent millions on parties and hunts. One royal evening cost as much as 10 villages produced in a year. Meanwhile, real wages for urban workers fell 25% in a decade. Bread prices jumped 60%. People stood in food lines 40 hours a week. The aristocrats said the economy is thriving. They were right. Their economy was thriving. The peasants said we're starving. They were right too. Their economy was collapsing. Two realities, one country. This is the stage where everything looks stable, but the system's already dead. King Louis XVI tried to fix it. He knew there were problems. In 1787, he called an assembly of notables, high clergy, nobles, wealthy merchants, to reform taxation. The idea was simple: make the privileged classes pay taxes. The aristocrats' answer was no. They refused. Instead, it demanded Louis call the Estates General, a body that hadn't met since 1614. Why? Because in the Estates General, each estate voted separately. Two privileged estates could always block the third. The math was simple. 2 versus 1. The system was locked, and the third estate knew it. Spring 1789. Estates General convened at Versailles. First and second estates refused to vote together with the third. They insisted on separate votes. This guaranteed nothing would change. May 5, 1789. Opening of Estates General. Third estate proposed voting by head, not by estate. Rejected. June 17, 1789. Third estate declared itself the National Assembly of France. They said all existing taxes were illegal without their consent. The king locked their meeting hall. June 20th. Tennis court oath. 577 deputies swore not to separate until they had created a constitution. Louis XVI said no new taxes without consent of the estates. Then the same day demanded all 3 estates sit and vote separately. The third estate refused to leave. This was stage 4. The elite clinging to a system that didn't work anymore, believing they could keep two worlds separate forever. History says no, you can't. July 1789. Louis moved troops toward Versailles. He fired Necker, the finance minister who was popular with the Third Estate. Paris exploded. July 14th, storming of the Bastille. The crowd seized the fortress. Killed the governor. Stuck his head on a pike. This wasn't a protest. This was revolution. In one day, a system that held for centuries collapsed. Next 4 years, terror. September massacres, 1792. Around 1,400 prisoners murdered by mobs in 5 days. January 1793. Louis XVI executed by guillotine. October 1793. Marie Antoinette executed. Reign of Terror, 1793 to 1794. 40,000 people executed. Aristocrats, priests, merchants, commoners. The system devoured everyone. The two worlds synchronized. Through destruction of the top. Different country. Different century. Same 6 stages. Russia, early 1900s. Tsarist Empire. Romanovs had ruled for 300 years. On the surface, great power, massive army, rapid industrialization, glittering street Petersburg. Underneath, same structure as France, 1789. Russian elite, nobility and industrialists, incredibly wealthy. They owned land, factories, railroads. Meanwhile, 80% of the population were peasants. A third didn't own enough land to feed their families without outside work or charity. Urban workers put in 60-hour weeks in factories with dangerous conditions. Wages barely covered food. Two worlds. One thrived. One survived. By 1914, the gap became astronomical. The Tsar's family spent millions of rubles on palaces and luxury. Nicholas II's coronation in 1896 cost more than the annual budget of several provinces. Real wages for workers fell 50% from 1913 to 1917. Bread prices doubled. People stood in food lines 40 hours a week. Shops closed early or completely due to lack of bread, sugar, and meat. Winter 1916 to 1917, women tore down wooden fences to heat their stoves. The elite said the empire is strong. The people said we're dying. Two realities, one country, again. World War I accelerated the collapse. Russian industries switched to war production. Vital raw materials stopped flowing. Factories shut down from lack of materials. The army faced massive shortages of supplies and weapons. The railroad system, underdeveloped, was overwhelmed moving troops and supplies to the front. This made it impossible to supply cities with food. By early 1917, the country stood on the edge of economic collapse. But Tsar Nicholas II believed the system would hold. He ignored warnings. October 1916, Petrograd's security service warned of disorders by the lower classes of the empire, infuriated by the burdens of daily existence. November 1916, the State Duma warned Nicholas that a terrible disaster would inevitably engulf the country unless a constitutional form of government was introduced. Nicholas ignored them. Stage 3. The elite thinks they can keep two worlds separate a little longer. January to February 1917. Situation deteriorating. Strikes escalating since mid-1915. Crime rising. People suffering and enduring, scavenging the city for food. Working women in Petrograd spend about 40 hours a week in food lines, begging, engaging in prostitution or crime to survive. The elite changed nothing. Tsar at the front. Serena under Rasputin's influence. Government paralyzed. Stage 4. Reality denial. February 23, 1917. Old style. Strike at Putilov plant in Petrograd. Gradually the strike engulfed major factories. By Saturday, February 28, 240,000 workers were striking. This was spontaneous. No opposition parties, no government circles were prepared. February 27. Soldiers of the Petrograd garrison refused to fire on protesters. They joined the uprising. In one day, the regime lost control of the capital. March 3, 1917, Nicholas II abdicated. 300 years of Romanov rule ended in a week. Next month, chaos. Provisional government tried to govern. Failed. October 1917, Bolsheviks seized power. Lenin promised peace, land, bread. What followed? Civil War, 1918 to 1921. About 10 million dead, soldiers, civilians, famine. War, communism. Nationalization of all industry, trade, property without compensation. Forced requisition of food from peasants. Famine 1921 to 1923. Several million died despite emergency food aid from abroad. The two worlds synchronized. Through destruction of the elite and mass death. Now America. Late 19th century. Mark Twain named it the Gilded Age in 1873. An era of materialistic excess, marked by widespread political corruption. Same structure, same stages. 1870s to 1890s. America industrializing faster than any country in history. Railroads crossing the continent. Steel mills, oil rigs, banking empires. Who controlled it? J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt. They'd formed monopolies. Controlled entire industries, banking, oil, steel, railroads. Their wealth was astronomical. Carnegie sold Carnegie Steel for $480 million in 1901, about $15 billion in 2025 dollars. Meanwhile, average annual wage for an industrial worker was $380 in 1880. That's about $12,000 in 2024 dollars. Below the poverty line. Two worlds. By 1890, the numbers became absurd. Top 2% of American households owned more than a third of national wealth. Top 10% owned about 3/4. Bottom 40% owned nothing. In terms of property, top 1% owned 51%. Bottom 44% owned 1.1%. Real wages did grow. From 1860 to 1890, 40% real wage growth. But that doesn't change the structure. 11 million out of 12 million American families earned less than $1,200 a year in 1890. Average wage in that group, $380, far below poverty line. Workers put in 60-hour weeks to earn that money. Meanwhile, in New York, the ruling class enjoyed opera, theater, and lavish parties. Sherry's restaurant hosted formal horseback dinners for the New York Riding Club. Mrs. Stuyvesant Fish once threw a dinner party for her dog, which arrived in a $15,000 diamond collar. While the rich wore diamonds, many wore rags. Two realities, one country. 1880s to early 1890s, system holding, but cracks visible. America had the world's highest workplace accident rate. In 1889, railroads employed 704,000 people. 20,000 were injured and 1,972 killed on the job that year. The U.S. was the only industrial power without a workers' compensation program. Labor leaders called wage labor wage slavery. In 1886, economist Henry George said, "Chattel slavery is dead, but industrial slavery remains, violence escalating. Strikes, riots, fear of revolution." An economist in 1879 noted a widespread feeling of uneasiness and impending revolution. The middle class whispered fearfully about carnivals of revenge. But the system held. Why? Political machines. Boss Tweed in Tammany Hall in New York provided more services to the poor than any city government before, though far more money went into Tweed's own pocket. Corruption reached the highest levels of government. Under President Ulysses S. Grant, the president and his cabinet were involved in scandals. Credit mobilier, gold conspiracy, whiskey ring. Europeans were horrified. French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau said, "The country went from barbarism to decadence without achieving civilization in between." Stage 3. System looks stable, but it's borrowing time. The elite denied the problem. The robber barons, Morgan, Rockefeller, Carnegie, built their wealth on exploitative practices. Low wages, dangerous working conditions, price fixing, political bribes. They said, "This is progress. This is capitalism. This makes America great." Workers said, "This is slavery." Both sides were right. From their perspective, Stage 4. Each world sees only its own reality. Panic of 1893. Railroad boom of the late 1880s created a bubble. Overinvestment, speculation. May 1893, National Cordage Company collapsed. Wall Street panic. June to July, banking failures spread. 500 banks closed. 15,000 companies went bankrupt. Unemployment shot to 18 to 20% by 1894. In some cities, 25%. This was the worst depression in American history to that point. But here's the difference from France and Russia. In America, the upper world didn't collapse, the lower world did. Depression lasted until 1897. Millions out of work, factories closed. Farms went bankrupt. Worker strikes turned violent. Pullman strike, 1894. Federal troops killed 30 workers. But the elite survived. They lost money, yes, but they kept control. Why? Because America had a safety valve, Western lands. Workers could migrate west, seek new opportunities. And because America lacked a revolutionary ideology like France had Enlightenment or Russia had Marxism. Synchronization happened, but it happened downward. The masses fell deeper into poverty. The elite retained power. The progressive era that followed, 1900 to 1915, wrought reforms. Antitrust laws, labor protections, women's suffrage. But the damage was done. Stage 6 completed through mass suffering. Let's break down the 6-stage pattern. Because once you see it, you'll understand why the U.S. in 2025 is next. Stage 1. The economy splits, what it means. Society divides into two worlds with different economic realities. France 1780s. Aristocracy versus third estate. Yes. Russia 1900 to 1914. Tsarist elite versus peasants and workers. Yes. USA 1880s. Robber barons versus industrial workers. Yes. USA 2025. Magnificent Seven tech and financial elite versus Main Street. Check. Stage 2. The numbers diverge. What it means. Top and bottom show opposite trends simultaneously. France 1789. Versailles spending millions, bread taking 88% of peasant budget. Yes. Russia 1917. Real wages fell 50%, Cirrus luxury at records. Yes. USA 1890. Top 1% owned 51%. Bottom 44% owned 1.1%. Yes. USA 2025. S&P 500 plus 26% in a year. 60% of Americans can't afford a new car. Check. Stage 3. Borrowed time. What it means. System looks stable, but is already non-functional. Lasts 2 to 3 years. France 1787 to 1789. Reform attempts blocked by aristocracy. Yes. Russia 1914 to 1917. War masks economic collapse. Yes. USA 1890 to 1893. Political machines and corruption hide cracks. Yes. USA 2023 to 2025. AI boom and record stock market hide Main Street collapse. Check. Stage 4. Reality denial peaks. What it means. Elite claims system works, ignoring opposite data. France 1789. Louis XVI insists on separate estate voting. Yes. Russia 1916 to 1917. Tsar Nicholas II ignores warnings. Yes. USA 1890 to 1893. Robber barons call exploitation progress. Yes. USA 2025. Economists say economy strong, ignoring Generation Z defaults and unemployment. Check. Stage 5. The trigger. What it means. One incident exposes the illusion of stability. System collapses quickly. France 1789. Storming of Bastille July 14th. Yes. Russia 1917. Putilov plant strike February 23rd. Yes. USA 1893. Panic of 1893. National cordage collapse. Yes. USA 2025. Hasn't happened yet. But the pattern says it's months away, not years. Pending. Stage 6. Rapid synchronization. What it means. Two worlds synchronize through collapse of one. Takes weeks or months. France 1789 to 1793. Guillotines, terror, 40,000 executed. Yes. Russia 1917 to 1921. Revolution, civil war, 10 million dead. Yes. USA 1893 to 1897. Depression, 18 to 20% unemployment, mass suffering. Yes. USA 2025. Hasn't happened yet. But the pattern says synchronization is inevitable. Pending. That's 4 out of 6 stages complete. History shows stages 5 and 6 happen fast. Weeks, not years. We're in that window right now. Let's tie the pattern to today through real numbers. S&P 500 up 26% in 2024. Records every week. 57 record closes in 1 year. Magnificent 7, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google, Amazon, Meta, Tesla. Total market cap represents 36.4% of the entire S&P 500. Warren Buffett, $325 billion cash in recent quarter. Record. He sold 50% of his Apple stake minus 600 million shares in a year. This is stage 4 behavior. Insiders exit before stage 5. Last time Buffett held this much cash? 2007. 12 months before the crash. 60% of American households can't afford a new car as of 2024. You need at least $100,000 income to follow standard budget advice. Average car payment, $749 per month for new cars, $529 for used. Auto loan defaults, 5.0% in recent quarters, almost at the 2010 peak of 5.3%. For subprime borrowers, 6.6% in early 2025, highest since data collection began. Generations unemployment, 9.1% for men aged 20 to 24, 7.2% for women. College graduates aged 23 to 27. Unemployment 4.59% compared to 3.25% 5 years prior. An increase of 1.34 percentage points, more than any other demographic group. 52% of 2023 graduates were underemployed, working outside their field 1 year after graduation. Entry-level positions disappearing in AI sectors. Software development dropped from 43% to 28%, data analysis from 35% to 22%, consulting from 41% to 26%. Life satisfaction for Americans under 30. USA ranks 62nd in the world. For comparison, Americans over 60 rank 10th, a gap of 50-plus positions, one of the largest in the world. Overall U.S. happiness ranking, lowest in recent history. U.S. debt to GDP, nearly 100%. Forecast approaching 102% in 12 months. Interest payments on debt, $1.2 trillion annually. More than spending on Medicare or national defense. David Kelly, J.P. Morgan's chief strategist. We're heading toward bankruptcy, slowly but surely. Here's how the remaining stages will unfold. If Stage 4 continues, reality denial, then Stage 5 must happen, because contradictions become unbearable. What could trigger Stage 5 for USA 2025? Major bank collapse, like Silicon Valley Bank in 2023, but bigger. Wave of corporate defaults, commercial real estate, auto loans, mass layoffs in AI sector, when $252 billion in investments don't pay off. Debt crisis, when markets stop buying U.S. treasuries at current yields. Geopolitical event, trade war with China, currency crisis. When Stage 5 hits, Stage 6 follows quickly. Because two worlds can't coexist long-term. Synchronization mechanisms, option A, like France and Russia. Upper world collapses. Revolution, terror. Wealth redistributed through violence. Option B, like USA 1890s. Lower world collapses. Mass unemployment. Bankruptcies, poverty deepens. Elite loses money but keeps control. Option C, new scenario for 21st century. Markets collapse. Main Street stays in depression. Magnificent Seven lose trillions in market cap. 401 plans collapse. Middle class destroyed. Nobody wins. Why can't it be stopped? The economy runs on consumption. If 60% of the population can't buy a car, they can't buy anything. Consumption falls. Corporate profits fall. Stocks fall. But stocks are already at records. So where's the profit coming from? Stock buybacks. Corporate debt, financial engineering. This isn't real growth. This is borrowed time. Stage 3. When the trigger hits, and it will, the system can't save itself. Too much debt. Too little real growth. This is checkmate. So what does this mean for you when Stage 5 hits? Stage 5, your job. If you're in a sector tied to consumer spending, layoffs start immediately. Middle management goes first. That could be you. Your savings, your 401, is in the S&P 500. That's the hype economy. When it crashes to join Main Street, you lose 30 to 40%. That's 10 years of gains gone in months. Stage 6, rapid synchronization. Your home. If you have a mortgage and lose your job, you can't pay. Default, foreclosure, your family. Your kids enter a job market where entry-level positions disappeared. Their future is blocked. Your society. Trust collapses. Social institutions fail. Political instability rises. This happened to Japanese workers in 1990. Stock market crashed 80%, never recovered. Your father worked 30 years, retired broke. This happened to Russian workers in 1917. Revolution, Civil War, millions died. This happened to American workers in 1893. Depression, 20% unemployment, years of suffering. If the pattern repeats, this happens to you. Stage 5, your money, personal. Stage 6, your community, local collapse. Stage 6 continuation, your country, systemic instability. Stage 6 finale, society, breakdown. This is Stage 6 in historical examples. France, 1789 to 1793. First, aristocracy lost land and titles. Then, economic collapse, hyperinflation. Then, government terror, 40,000 executed. Then, social breakdown, famine, wars. Specific horror. September massacres, 1792. Mobs killed 1,400 prisoners in 5 days in Paris. Bodies in the streets. Russia 1917 to 1921. First, Tsarist elite lost power and property. Then, nationalization of all industry and trade. Then, Civil War, Red Terror, White Terror. Then, famine 1921 to 1923, several million dead. Specific horror. Cannibalism during famine. Parents ate children. Documented. USA 1893 to 1897. First, mass layoffs, 18 to 20% unemployment. Then, 500 bank failures, 15,000 company bankruptcies. Then, strike violence, federal troops kill workers. Then, years of poverty, no recovery until 1897. Specific horror. Pullman strike 1894. Federal troops killed 30 workers. President Cleveland sent the army to crush the strike. This isn't fantasy. This is what happened. When will Stage 5 happen for the USA? Based on the pattern, France, Stage 4 lasted 2 years, then Stage 5 in July 1789. Russia, Stage 4 lasted 2 to 3 years, then Stage 5 in February 1917. USA 1890s, Stage 4 lasts about 3 years, then Stage 5 in May 1893. Average, Stage 4 lasts 2 to 3 years, then Stage 5 hits quickly. USA 2025, Stage 4 began in 2023, when the divergence hit 3 years. The math points to Stage 5 by 2025 to 2026. Could be sooner if a trigger hits: major bank collapse, corporate default wave, geopolitical crisis, debt crisis. Could be delayed if Federal Reserve intervenes aggressively, massive fiscal stimulus, real technological breakthrough, not hype. But we're talking months, maybe 1 to 2 years, not decades. When Stage 5 hits, Stages 5 and 6 take weeks, not months. France, from storming of Bastille, July 14, 1789, to fall of monarchy, September 21, 1792, 3 years. But the initial system collapse, days. Russia, from February 23 strike to Tsar's abdication March 3, 8 days. USA 1893, from national cordage collapse in May to 500 bank failures by July, 2 months. When it comes, it moves fast. 6 stages, France, Russia, USA 1890s, all went through them. USA 2025 is approaching Stage 5. Stages 5 and 6 happen fast once the trigger hits. But here's what most people don't understand. There's a pattern within the pattern, a hidden stage between 5 and 6. It's called the insider exodus window. It's the moment between the triggering event and full collapse. Usually lasts 48 to 72 hours. In that window, insiders move assets, exit stocks, buy gold, land, foreign currency, protect themselves. Buffett's doing it now. $325 billion cash. That's not random. Joseph Kennedy did it in 1929. Sold everything after his shoeshine boy gave him stock tips. He didn't just avoid the crash. He bet against it. There's a way to position yourself for Stage 6, legally, the same way Kennedy used to profit from 1929. That's what we're covering next. Subscribe, because when Stage 5 hits, you'll have 48 to 72 hours to act.